needless to say, Dan Lanning in Oregon are recruiting at a pretty high level here. And it started to beg the question. I mean, I've started to ask the question. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Is Dan Lanning the next Kirby Smart? Because, man, they are recruiting at such a high level. Now, we'll see next week. By the way, the new college football game will be out by this time or when this guy commits. But
Yep.
DJ Pickett will be committing on the 17th. They get DeCorian Moore. They get Dorian Brew. Dan Lanning off to a roll, man, building something or what could be a monster in Oregon.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. We talked about this after signing day, the way that they put that class together. But the thing that really stands out to me is the consistency right now with Dan Lanning. The fact that he kicked ass in his second year in his 2024 recruiting class and then moves on to the transfer portal, kicks ass with one of the best transfer portal classes, which is why we're picking them as a national title favorite. And then to the point now where he just rolls right on into 2025 like it's nothing. Everybody else is in the room trying to talk to kids and offer them money and see how interested they are. And he comes in, dick swinging, kicking the door down, telling everybody that he owns the room. That is what Dan Lanning is doing right now. There are other coaches that have been making waves, but he has been waiting for the moment. And it's very clearly that he is going to continue to push aggressively. And the most important part is that the guys that they got with DeCorian Moore, with Dorian Brew, and then they also have the commitment of Dallas Wilson. They are front to back on both sides of the football, very, very gifted as usual.
Well, and I think about it last year, Joe. He had a top 5 class a season ago. He got Elijah Rushing, Aiden Breedlin, Jericho Johnson, all along the defensive line, man. I mean, the way that he's building it, Joe, I think is the difference for me that it's like why people start talking about Kirby, right? Like because of like, look, man, defensive linemen are a dime a dozen. You don't the Elijah kid, 6'6", 235, Joe, that doesn't fall off on trees. A 5-star. Okay, and that's the point. Now he gets DeCorian Moore over the fourth holiday. Dorian Brew committed. You talked about Dallas Wilson, but Joe, here he comes with Wyatt, the linebacker. I just look at them and say to myself that they are recruiting at such a high level. Joe, I don't know if Oregon's not in a consistent basis as long as Dan Lanning is there, that they're not going to be a consistent contender in the Big Ten. When you recruit at that high of a level, you're going to contend every year, okay, if you're a good enough coach, which I think Dan is. So it's going to be really interesting. By the way, they're killing it in the portal too. I mean, Joe, their backup might be one of the more talented quarterbacks in the Big Ten.
Yeah. So here's the biggest thing, too, that I think it needs to be emphasized. One, they're able to recruit on a national level. They're ascending to this point where they're becoming a national brand. As Phil Knight has kind of wanted them to be Nike University. They have that power to recruit nationally. But I think what the biggest thing is the foundation is why Lincoln Riley, I stand by, is in hot water. Because if you look at some of these kids that they've got committed, you've got Jordan Davidson, who's from Santa Ana, California. You've got Achilles Smith Jr., who's from San Diego, California. You've got Nasir Wyatt from Santa Ana, California. They're getting kids from Arizona. Cooper Perry, who is a wide receiver from Scottsdale, Arizona. Sacramento, California with Josiah Sharma. They are Concord, California. Like, we could keep going down here. They are walking into a region that they're not supposed to have any business in. They are controlling the West. And that is what is going to, I think, ultimately pave this path for Dan Lanning. He can grab guys from around the country, but he is going to turn himself into Kirby, as we keep saying, which is a little bit of an obnoxious comp for us to make, but who cares? He is able to do that because he understands if he can pluck guys from Washington and UCLA and USC that are normally the guys that they're recruiting, it is only going to make them stronger because all the Western kids are going to want to go to Oregon.
Look, almost a year ago, Joe, I think it's funny, the DeCorian Moore video of his commitment got 5,000 extra views this weekend because I guess people thought they were doing it on AYS. I love the kid. I think he's very talented. He would be the first wide receiver there if he wants to get drafted in the first round, though, and quite some time. Just throwing that out there. But, like, dude, they're likely to land per Steve Wilfong, DJ Pickett, right? And so, like, you look at what they're doing on the defensive side, Joe, not only on the defensive line, they're going into Tampa, Florida. They're going into all these different places and getting talented dudes defensively. What now? Do I think that there comes a time where there may be some other things that he needs to get better at? Maybe land one of these high-profile quarterbacks, but it's tough for me to say that because Dante Moore's in the boat, right? And so you have one of the best backup options in the country. Look, I just look at this, what Dan Lanning's doing, Joe, and say to myself that nobody on the West Coast is doing it better than him right now, and they are recruiting like one of the best programs in the country.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Question becomes, is it enough to take over Ohio State?
I don't think that – well, you're just saying on the field.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're and I kind of like this. I mean, it's a collision course. Two national brands slamming their heads against one another. I'm excited, dude. I think this is going to be a really good rivalry for like the next – it's going to turn into one in the next 10 years.
Here's the thing with Oregon. At some point, you got to get over the hump. You've been on this stage many times, and you have not overcome.
But not at this level. Not at this level.
No. I mean, we forget now that
Chip Kelly wasn't recruiting dudes like this.
No, but he was getting in national title games. So
That's a one.
Yeah, Joe, but he got to another playoff, did he not? Win the playoff in 14? No,
Why am I misremembering? I don't know, dude. I really think that this is it's a different world that we live in, but it's I think that
they got the multiple New Year's Six bowls, multiple Rose Bowls. They got to a national championship. I agree with what you're saying. What I was trying to say is Dan has not been there yet. And I do think that there comes a part where people are asking, like Cristobal had 10 wins for all those years. You look at him and say, hey, man, when is Oregon going to take the next step? They could have done it this year, Joe. I mean, on paper.
Still only in year 2, though. That's why I'm like giving him a little time.
Well, wasn't Kalen DeBoer in year 2?
But he'd been coaching. He's been coaching a lot longer. The context is important.
Okay.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.